Hey everybody, welcome back. Johnny here, and today I finished my first full Yakuza game. I've done a full catch up of the story for the other games, and I jumped into this one with the intention of trying out a full Yakuza game and get my hands dirty. So today we're walking around Kamarucho, and we're talking about my experience with the game, the gameplay, the presentation, whatever technical issues, and I'm gonna come down pretty strongly on the side of this being a very good game. So let's break it down and start with the gameplay. The first thing as we walk on my flip-flops here is you'll see there are a lot of random encounters, right? We're gonna run into these guys the entire time. This is one thing that I did find a little bit grating is just how often we're running into these random encounters. Now, as someone who has played his share of JRPG games, this is not something unexpected or weird to me, but in a game where it's not a turn-based game, it does feel kind of weird to have these eternally spawning enemies. You'll see that as we walk, these guys are aggressively spawning like on every corner of the city. It doesn't matter how many you kill or beat. You have another pod of guys around the next corner every time. So that is one thing I had to get used to. And you can run away from them, but they're actually quite persistent, and they'll like harass you and chase you around. That's one thing I kind of had to get used to. The other thing is the combat itself. For someone who this is really their first time, playing through an entire Yakuza game, I had to get used to the combat a little bit because as much as you have a lot of tools, you can also get bodied very easily. Like one thing you will find as we switch to the secondary fighting style here is that even basic dudes, like I'm gonna let myself get hit here and see if I can demonstrate this. There you go. That's a basic dude, by the way. And he full knocked us into the ground with one punch. So it is interesting that oftentimes the enemies can tank several of our attacks without going to the ground, but we will get knocked down very easily, even by basic enemies. So this is just something I had to get used to. And you have to kind of learn to dodge the attacks preemptively because a lot of times attacks don't have a lot of wind up. It's not like a Souls game where you're kind of getting telegraphed the fact that you're about to get attacked. Very often the attacks just boom come out of nowhere. So just sort of preemptively dodging, you do have access to a lot of dashes and stuff. So, spamming that definitely helped me. But that's all to say there was a bit of a learning curve for me to kind of perform well in combat without getting stun locked or knocked over a bunch, right? But it does feel really good when you start to learn how to pilot the character a little bit and you get some cool combos and you're dodging attacks. Oh! And those finishers always feel amazing to do as well. Very, very satisfying. It's also obviously a big part of the game that you can pick up stuff like this cone. And you can hammer this poor guy with it. And then you can also, of course, enter heat mode where you do a lot more damage with your attacks. And you also get access to some other finishers that you can unlock as you level out your skills and different attacks. Did I just pick up that entire motorbike? Oh, that's amazing. So it does feel really good, and the combat is satisfying when you get into the speed of it. So I actually ended up enjoying fighting a lot because it also looks great. It looks great when you're able to sort of outmaneuver all the enemies and you understand what's going on. So that's all really cool. One thing I didn't like that was tied to that is how to upgrade the abilities. Now, this may be just me. I actually really dislike this type of menu for skills because it becomes very difficult to identify exactly what you want to upgrade and what you were upgrading or what you were in the process of leveling up. And many of these descriptions are complete nonsense. If you look at them, it's like the Racing Street King is a collection of reports about a street fighter who never stopped running. I could learn a great technique from this. Okay, well, it gives you a hint, right? It tells you how you will trigger this attack, which is fine. But I would prefer a straight up definition of what's going on. Like, yeah, some of these vaguely say, oh, it's going to boost your attack. Okay, by how much? You know, what am I getting for my points? It's never really clear. So I personally am not a fan of this interface. I think it's a little bit confusing. There's no way to have like eagle's eye view, almost like a sphere grid. If you could view all of these skills in one place from a high level standpoint, I would much prefer that type of view. But that's my personal preference there. I do like the gear system in that as you unlock more slots, you can put in some really powerful gear that will boost your defense and your attack as well. So the scaling feels great because you start to become this raid boss as you get better items and better skills. Another thing we have to mention is just the variety of side activities in the game. It's pretty insane. Everything from traditional games to arcade games, karaoke. Is it karaoke? I don't know why that word is difficult to pronounce. But anyway, there's a lot you can do in this game. And that really helps to kind of keep the freshness. Because when you get tired of the combat a little bit, if you do, you can always take a step back, go to the karaoke with your friend, sing a few songs, and the music is great as well. And then you can go and maybe play some of the car mini game where you have the little cars that go on tracks in a little circuit, and you can like tune up your cars and it's a whole system there. So it's pretty rich. You also have 8-ball and a couple other things. So it's like there's really something for everybody. And even if you find one side activity to latch onto, like maybe you're an 8-ball fan and that's your thing, doing that between missions really kind of like pads out the experience to make it to kind of keep it fresh, just to have that one other thing to go to when the main loop gets a bit tiring. Not that it did for me, but it is there, and I think it's one of the strengths of the game for sure. Other things like the Coliseum system, it's basically like a big arena thing where you can do group battle. It's really cool in the game, and you can also recruit different people to fight alongside you in big battles. You can have clowny outfits in there. It's really fun, and you level up your status in that Coliseum area as well, and you get access to more interesting combat options there as well, bigger brawls, and really colorful characters as always to fight against. The last thing I want to mention about combat is that I had a small issue with gadgets. Now, in one of the fighting styles, you have gadgets that you can use that are really powerful, and I'll try to show you here in a second if we start a combat. So we're going to switch to that stance as I'm immediately knocked down. For example, right, we can do that as sort of a crowd control option. We can zoom into them like that for incredible damage. It's really good as well. But the fact is, some of these gadgets sometimes take quite a bit to trigger. So for example, there's one where I throw a cigarette. First of all, it's not easy to aim the cigarette, but it also takes a while to actually trigger. If I'm calling the drones, sometimes they will actually take quite a while to come out, especially if I'm in the middle of attacking. And now I want to switch to that. There's like a 2-second delay before they come out, and sometimes you can get hit before that happens. You're kind of left a little bit vulnerable. So there was something about the gadgets that never felt super responsive to me personally in how they got activated. But let's talk about presentation. For me, the character models look insanely good in this game. In the cutscenes, when you see people up close, there's something about the way the character models look that was really stunning to me. I thought the level of detail, you could see the pores in people's faces. And, again, we have some very colorful characters in Yakuza games. So it really helps to accentuate those elements and really kind of sit with the characters as they go through these drawn out cutscenes, which admittedly could be a point of criticism for some people. But I think it's part of the DNA of Yakuza games. It is these self-indulgent, drawn-out cutscenes where people really are talking it out, and they like to talk a lot. Even in the middle of a battle, they'll just break out into a full dialogue and talk to each other about their motivations. Listen, I'm here for it. I don't mind it. It is something that's there. And again, I think the graphics really help to enjoy those cutscenes way more. The environments also look very good, even though, when you look around, there's nothing that you would say like, oh, the textures are incredible or anything like that. But it all comes together to look really lush, in my opinion. And again, going back to the cutscenes, they do a great job on making stuff look great in cutscenes. And I think overall, I was really happy with how the game looks, how the city is presented. The one point of criticism there for me would be that the city is actually very simple. I've played Judgment as well, and I've watched all the story for the other Yakuza games. And for me, it does get a bit tiring to kind of go through the same city in so many of those games, and not much seems to be changed. It is the city we know and love. And I think, in my opinion, for a game in the current age, this city has kind of outlived its welcome a little bit. It does feel a little bit simplistic in, the layout and what's in it, what you can do, where you can go into, and all that type of stuff. So I would like to see it broken out into a bigger area, maybe a more elaborate area. That's one of the reasons I'm excited for the new upcoming Yakuza game, Infinite Wealth, which I'll also get into, I think, tomorrow. So yeah, that's what I would say. Overall, it looks fantastic. The menus are a bit of a pain point, like I was saying. I don't particularly like how they are presented to you in a lot of cases, but it's not terrible. It's simply not my preference. But yeah, overall, this gets a really good rating in presentation. And just to latch on to that, I really didn't have any technical issues, which in this day and age is amazing to say for a PC game. We're so often getting stutters and all kinds of problems, crashes, all this stuff. I got zero problems in 30, 40 hours of gameplay here. So I'm very, very happy with the performance. And an additional note there is that I played quite a bit on my Steam Deck too. And the Steam Deck run this game really, really well. It runs it perfectly, and it looks great on the OLED screen of my Steam Deck. I was very happy with that, and overall, very, very happy with the performance of the game. And with that, we're going to wrap up this one. I hope you enjoyed my little talk through the city here, going through my experience with the game. This was a very, very positive and happy Yakuza experience. It gets me excited for the next game that's coming out. And I have been converted to being a Yakuza fan. So there you go. I hope that was enjoyable to listen to. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.